this is my pivotal moment. What am I going to do? Life is too short. Let me make a decision of what I want to do next. And you probably felt that way too. I mean, maybe you had some ups and downs, and when you had that pivotal moment of like, what am I doing?
Totally.
Yeah, what's my story?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Bold Moves How Did You Know podcast, a podcast for the naturally curious who want to define their own path. Here, I'm sharing bold move stories that propelled my guests from curiosity to action. And in doing so, they've defined a path that is purposeful to them. Through these stories, I hope you'll be inspired to pursue your boldest dreams. Carli Sidoti is a brand and marketing strategist who recently made the bold move to leave her job as a VP at a reputable Cleveland-based advertising agency and start her own consulting business. She spent her entire career of nearly 20 years, y'all, in the advertising industry with dreams of one day becoming a partner. But she realized that it wasn't her path after all. So she decided to change her story to see where that would take her. Now, on top of managing her consulting business and navigating some of life's challenges, she's a single mother to a 9-year-old boy, Rocco, and her 14-year-old Boston Terrier, Vito. Carli, my last name is Rocco, so I knew this was meant to be.
I know. I love it.
Amazing. Well, hey, Carli, thank you for being on the show. Welcome to the podcast.
So thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to get to talk to you. You've just recently made a shift, a significant shift, what we're calling a bold move, right? This is like in real time happening. So I would love for you to take people through your story, your 20 years of advertising, and some of the things that you had to navigate along the way. And then that moment when you got to the pivotal point of deciding that you needed a new direction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thanks for giving me the opportunity again for coming on. And I have to say congratulations to you because you're almost at 1 year of your podcast. So goals,
thank you.
goals for me. Yes, I'm looking up to you. But I would say, so my career journey started right even before I graduated from college. I was an intern at an ad agency and fell in love with it and was like, this is what I'm going to do. So my entire career working in different ad agencies in Ohio, I was in Columbus and then Cleveland and worked my way up. I loved working with clients. I love the people I work with, very talented, creative people, and always being there for clients. So I'm just kind of a account service, business service type of employee at the agencies I worked for, really fast paced, thriving, and worked my way up. So I thought, if I started as an intern when I was 21 years old and continuously working my way up, there was only one way to go. And I wanted to be partner. And that was always just kind of my long-term vision. And I made sure my peers knew about it, my supervisors, I openly talked about it because this is the path you're supposed to be on. I mean, what else is there? So fast forward maybe 16, 17 years, we have COVID. I start to think, okay, what's going on? As I'm sure a lot of your listeners and a lot of other people in their careers question, what am I going to do? And I just found myself being more unfulfilled and thinking, losing steam, kind of getting burnt out, thinking of different options. And a good thing happened at work, a few good things had happened. I won a new business, which was huge at an ad agency. And I was on such a high. It was great. You bring in a big new client to the agency, things look good for you. So soon after that, I got promoted to VP and I'm just flying high. I'm like, things are great. I'm on the trajectory of being VP. And due to some organizational changes, I got removed from the account, unfortunately, and thought, oh my God, what the heck? It was just a gut punch and a blow to your ego because you think, okay, now what am I going to do? Is this path for me? You start second guessing yourself. That had happened in my professional life. And soon after in my personal life, I have a cousin who's very close to me who got diagnosed with cancer. And those things all together, the highs and the lows, that all happened in really like 5 months together. I really had to do soul searching and think, this is my pivotal moment. What am I going to do? Life is too short. Let me make a decision of what I want to do next. And you probably felt that way too. I mean, maybe you had some ups and downs, and when you had that pivotal moment of like, what am I doing?
Totally.
Yeah. What's my story?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The pivotal moment for me was just feeling a little bit like a square peg in a round hole, if that makes sense. Like the role had morphed into something that wasn't fulfilling me. And then I ended up getting laid off. And again, I was just like very confused, but also I was feeling like I had another thing that I wanted to do, that I was meant for something else. So it actually felt like the push in the right direction. But yes, all of these things converge and you're left thinking, oh, the path that I was on may not necessarily make sense for me anymore.
Right, right. And things happen for a reason. And you think, all right,
Mm,
I'm just gonna follow it and go with it. But yeah, you have to go through some really hard times to figure out, all
yeah,
right, what's next. And things happen for a reason. They'll all fall into place. And that's what I
yeah.
continue to tell myself. But that was really it. It was just kind of all these highs and these lows and thinking, all right, my career dream was to be a consultant one day. And I thought, why do I have to wait? When is one
Hmm.
day? Is it when I'm 60? Like, why can't it be when I'm 40? So I thought, why, after everything with my cousin he's 36 years old and got diagnosed with cancer. And I just thought, I'm
Yeah.
going to be 40. I can go at any time too. Why not just do it now? And that's what I like to tell a lot of people too. You'll know in your gut when it's time to make that change. And this was the universe saying, do something different, make a bold move. You got nothing to lose. Life's too short.
Mm. I love what you said about you confronted a lot of obstacles and that presented the pivotal moments, right? One of my prior guests, Ange Barnard, she's a career coach, and she said a quote that I think about a lot. She said, contrast gives you clarity.
Yeah.
And I think that is very true in a lot of cases where we start to think differently about our careers and our lives in general when we bump up against these obstacles that make us just break us open a little bit wider, right? It sounds like that happened in a couple different ways for you. But before we take action on our new path, we know that there's a lot of this rumbling to figure out what it is we are going to do. You mentioned soul searching. What did that look like for you?
Would say it was a lot of things. I did some reading, some meditation, some journaling. I do have a career coach, Annetta Kuzma, who was a guest on your podcast in May, and just listening to a lot of her health and wellness podcasts. And I also listened to you as a guest on the podcast. That's how I knew who you were. And I just thought after listening to you and other peers, what is my story? I don't have a story. And that's where the soul searching started, thinking, all right, what is my story going to be personally and professionally? I didn't know what that was yet. So I was listening to the podcast, listening to other people's stories and getting that inspiration and hiring a career coach. So that was really a lot of the work that I felt like I needed to do on myself to clear my head and see a forward path.
Before we go deeper into all of that, because I do want to get into that, I want to spend some time on this concept of feeling stuck. I heard you talk about feeling like you were stuck and sharing your thoughts and perspective on that. What does it feel like to be stuck in your career, in your life? Like, how did that feel for you?
It was a tough time. It was very confusing because yeah, you question yourself. You question yourself as an employee, as a leader. Am I supposed to be here? What is my story? Like I was saying, and that's where you feel helpless. I joined boards. I volunteered.
Mm,
I tried to find what was going to give me that sense of fulfillment, and
yeah.
I couldn't get it. I mean, I would even look for other jobs sometimes thinking, well, maybe I need another job, but is that going to fulfill me? Because I'm already burnt out. I'm already confused. So I think it's just taking a step back and trying to reevaluate your values and your strengths and your purpose. But yeah, the feeling is just kind of being lost and confused and unfulfilled.
So I'm putting together a keynote talk, Carli. I really hope to get on stage this year and share a lot of the insights that I've been learning over the last year of doing this podcast about how to make a bold move. And one of the studies that I saw, this is crazy, but one of the studies that I read was from Oracle and Workplace Intelligence. They did the study in 2021. It found that 75% of people report feeling stuck personally or professionally. That is a lot of people who just feel like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. What's next for me? It's a lot of questioning.
Yeah.
And I think what you said about how you unstuck yourself by listening to other people, doing your own journaling, that's a really big part of unstucking yourself. So is that how you would say you clawed yourself out from confusion to more clarity, is just really taking a look but also spending time? I mean, how long did that take you to identify, okay, this is my new direction?
I want to say, I played around with the idea of consulting for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And again, it was my long-term vision. That's what I'm going to do. And it was that pivotal moment that I snapped out of it
Yeah.
and I took action right away. Like I was saying, in those 5 months where I was on such a high at my career and then started to go down really fast, I was angry. I
Mhm.
was in all these different emotions. I think that just happened so fast that I was like, screw it. I don't care. I'm not going to wait this out.
Yeah.
I'm still young, and I'll tell people you're still young when you're 65. All right, so it's like you can still change at any age. But it was and maybe it was the anger or the emotions that I had, and I thought, screw this, I'm doing something to get me out. And I contacted a coach the next day because I knew if I didn't, I wouldn't continue on the path. I needed to do it in that moment and contact her and get it on the calendar.
We started talking before this podcast about the notion of midlife crisis, but what I'm trying to reframe or think of differently as the 40-year-old click.
Mhm.
You mentioned you're turning 40 next month. Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
I just turned 40 in June, and I don't know that we should be calling it midlife crisis. So tell me what you think about that. But there is something that happens in this midpoint of our lives where we reevaluate. We have enough history now to look back at what's been going on over the last 20 years and reevaluate, is that the path that is going to continue to make us
Yeah.
fulfilled, or do we actually have something different sitting on our desire, on our
Yeah.
heart, that we want to actually go after and achieve? And I think a lot of people take that opportunity to maybe take a directional shift in their life.
Mhm. Yeah, and I like how you call it the 40-year-old click, because you might be onto something. That might be the trend, or replacing the midlife crisis. Because I always thought when I was a little girl, the midlife crisis was when you were 40. Because when you're like 10 years old, you're like 40's over the hill because you only live till you're 80. I don't know, but now that
Yeah.
I'm 40, I'm like, this is still young. I still have a way to go. This isn't midlife. So I think you're right. I think a way to coin the term would be the 40-year-old click. And I know there are a lot of women who I work with who are still in their late 20s, early 30s, and they say to
Yeah.
me, "Oh, I can't wait. And, I want to be a consultant too, and I want to move on." And I was like, "Just wait. You're not there yet," because I feel like they still have a lot of work to do and get that experience under their belt. And then when they're to the 40s, you have a little more wisdom to click,
Yeah.
make that change.
Yeah. You know a little bit more about yourself. You have a little
Yes.
more authority in your
Uh,
career. And so I feel like a lot of different things come together. And midlife crisis sounds so negative, but honestly,
yeah.
like, don't we feel like this is so freeing, actually? Like, I don't feel like I'm in crisis at all. I feel
Uh,
like I've been set free.
yes.
So I do want to backtrack to this because you mentioned you knew you wanted to be a consultant, but like later on. And you
Yeah.
also, though, it sounds like you wanted to also be a partner.
Yeah.
So, how were those two things, like, how in your mind were those two things going to show up in your career? Were you going to make it to partner and then you were going to do the consultant route? And then when the career debacle happened, you just decided, what am I waiting on? Like, why would I wait to do that
No.
consultant path?
Yeah. Like, the plan was, I thought, if I gained as much experience and knowledge as I could in the advertising industry and any organization, right? So at that company that I was at last, I wanted to learn everything about how the business operated. I wanted to make a lot of those bigger decisions and not be in the weeds with the day-to-day and the client work that I was doing for so long. Although I was really good at doing the in the weeds day-to-day client work. So I think that's probably where I got stuck a little bit too, is that it was difficult for me to break free of that. And I would talk about it with my manager too. Like, I cling to like the day to day. I love that stuff. And I couldn't really move up mentally, maybe because I was having a hard time with that. But I thought gaining the experience of being a partner one day and somehow shedding all that day to day responsibilities, I would gain all of the knowledge I needed to then one day be a consultant. But after a while too, I thought I know everything. I feel confident enough. What else do I need to learn? I know about running businesses and managing multi-million dollar huge companies. So why can't I do it? So I think that's why I was like, I don't need to follow the typical path of an upward trajectory. It can go any which way to how I felt. And I was like, I'm just going to take a chance. And I did not look back. And I'm still not looking back. I'm just forging forward.
So when did you make the leap to consulting?
So I did it very fast. When I met with my career coach, I think I may have messaged her in May. And we had a plan that said, all right, we're going to launch your company, Carli, let's say in December. And we'll do like a soft launch and transition somehow. Well, I was ready to go in July. So May, June, like 3 months. I was so excited. I'm like, let's do it. So my business coach and I put together a plan of how am I going to tell my company? That was the hardest part because I love the people I work with and it was going to be a tough decision. But luckily I had a super supportive COO and manager, and they were like, we value you. You can stay on for a little bit as you transition off, which was the best case scenario, right? So like as I'm starting my consultancy, they let me stay on part-time. And it was a good transition for them as well, because I got to slowly offboard some things. So let's say, I think it was September, like right after Labor Day is when I officially left the agency as a full-time employee and started buttoned up consulting and had my own clients and took off from there. So it's been, since September.
A fast start.
Yes, start. I know. And that's how I am. Like I'm fast paced. Like things need to like keep going. But talk about obstacles and life obstacles. And this gets a little personal, but soon after I launched Buttoned Up, I had a breakup in my marriage. And that was just very quick and unexpected and just blew up, thinking like, oh my gosh, now what? You know, talk about a huge obstacle, but I still pushed through, like I said, because you just can't look back. And I wasn't about to let all that hard work and momentum of starting a business dissipate, because that would just be, it would not be realistic for me. I have to, and it keeps me busy.
Yeah, when I learned that about your story, I was curious about how you were able to push through something as emotionally difficult as a divorce or impending or separation.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, obviously, a lot of people have situations, life events come up like this, but also there are other things in your day-to-day life that get in the way all the time, right? Like, I'm not a mom, Carli, so I can't relate on that level, but I can certainly understand how having kids could definitely take away so much of your personal time that you would want to dedicate into your next bold move. But it seems like you were able to figure out how to keep moving forward in spite of challenges. What advice would you have for people who are going through either a life event like a separation, a divorce, other things that I don't even want to say because they could be so tragic, very painful, but down to the routine of a day where you have you have to pick up your kids from school, you have to drop them off in the morning, you have to get them ready for the next day. And so it's just like takes up so much time. And I think that so many people will be like, oh, I'll get to that later.
Yeah.
So how do you like say, you know what? I'm going to manage this and I'm going to do this. It's an and, not an or.
Right, right. That's a great point. It's something that I've been able to do, and I hope other people can do it too, but I have two channels. I have my work
Mhm.
mode and I have my personal mode. So fortunately, I can go on work mode and try and ignore everything else. I don't think it's the healthiest thing, which is why I will also recommend therapy to people, because you do have to face the reality. You really do. But
Mhm.
for me, I that I filled my void with work. I mean, and maybe that's why I was able to launch and turn everything around so quickly and push forward, because I don't want to think about the terrible things that are happening. I
Mhm.
just thought I'm going to put all of my energy, emotion, and effort into being great at what I do, being a good mom, trying to network and feel good about myself and start my business, that I try to
Mhm.
ignore everything. So when I'm done working at the end of the day, I have to think like, oh gosh, what can I do to keep myself busy? I talk to
Mhm.
friends. I do things
Mhm.
that are positive for myself, positive affirmations. So
Mhm.
again, it's taking care of your mind when you're not working, and when these negative feelings and emotions start to arise, because it can take a toll on you. And I don't want it to bleed into my work. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of what I would suggest, is try to figure out how to fill the void in a healthy way, what you can do. And if you can just put all that effort into work or something that's productive,
Mhm.
that would be a winner.
Yeah, you're making me think. I just had a situation come up that I haven't talked about yet, but you're making me think about it, which is my mom last month ended up randomly, without any notice, having open heart surgery.
Oh my God.
And I had to rush down to Florida where she was having the surgery to be there as a caretaker for the aftermath of that. And of course, it was completely unexpected. That wasn't part of what I was going to be planning on doing. But obviously, I took the gas pedal off work for a little while because I needed to shift my focus to that. And so I think that's where I'm relating, where I would use like the little in between moments of the needing to be on with my mom to go and take a break and do the work that I was focused on, my bold move. And so it was that kind of interesting dichotomy of
Yeah.
going through a tragic event like that. And I guess being able to understand what you're saying, which is, yes, like terrible is happening. But then there are in between moments where you can focus in on the positive thing that you're doing. And if you're excited about what you're doing, it makes it even easier and more, I don't know, maybe you want to switch your focus there
Yeah.
because you are excited about it, right? That's, one of the things that I'm realizing about making bold moves, or maybe I've always realized it in the back of my mind, is the bold moves that you and I make on our own because of our own choice and in our path of where we want to go. Those are exciting most of the
Yeah.
times. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it is hard. There's a lot of hard that goes into what you're trying to do on your own,
Mhm.
but it's problems that you want to be solving. And so that makes it feel so much more fulfilling when you're doing it. Do you agree?
Absolutely. It's easier to get lost in the work that you find fulfilling, that you enjoy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So maybe like when those it's just a hypothesis, right? But, maybe when those life events come up that are really hard and challenging, maybe having a bold move that you're excited about
Hmm.
can help you balance things out a little bit more.
Yeah. Exactly.
Cool.
See what the universe gives to you. How is your mom doing, by the way?
Oh, thanks for asking. She's doing amazing.
But
She is about a month outside of surgery now. And her doctor, one of the nurses in the office after her follow up appointment, 10 days after, mind you, Carly, said they've never seen a patient recover as well as her in
oh,
30 years.
wow.
So, yes, my mom is a very energetic,
Yeah.
enthusiastic lady, and she is doing amazing. I should put some more research into this because I think there's a lot of research backing this concept of forward motion, positivity, optimism that helps you get through these situations that come up. If you can keep your mental state in a place where you're looking forward to the next day versus getting too caught up in what's behind you,
Yeah.
maybe that has something to do with how you are able to overcome some of those obstacles as well. And that's
Yeah.
what you said. You put all your mind into the next day, not on what was behind you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so far it's working. There are days that I need to take a break and recharge. And
100%.
or there's days that, I'm like, I don't want to do any work. I'm tired. My brain cannot function. And that's okay. Because then the next day I come back better and feeling stronger. So it's totally normal.
Thanks for your vulnerability around that and
Course.
taking
Yeah.
a side step
Yeah.
to talk a little bit about that. But I hope and I know that it's going to resonate with a lot of people because especially as we get into our 40-year-old clicks,
Yes.
life events happen at a way more fast pace than they ever had before, right?
Yep.
Adulting is real. All right. So you mentioned the Bold Moves recipe. So I want to get into that a little bit, and get your perspective on how maybe some of these parts of this recipe played into your bold move of going from corporate to consulting. So we spent a lot of time talking about part one, which is your desire. And as a reminder to listeners who may have heard the episode called Curious How to Make Your Bold Move, discover the bold moves recipe. I'm saying that off of the top of my head, but the title is
It
something like
was
that.
November 29th, I think, is when it was posted.
Thank you.
Listen to it recently.
If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. I also put the Bold Moves recipe now into an email series. So you can go to my website and sign up and get the Bold Moves recipe delivered to your inbox. It's full of prompts and helpful information to help you get to where you're going faster and with more purpose. So speaking of that, part one of the recipe is spending time figuring out what you want. Which is not necessarily a novel concept, but I do feel like people skip over that quite a bit. Maybe they ignore the gut feelings, they ignore what they're good at, and they just keep going on their path. But I think people who make bold moves, they do tune in and they spend quite a bit of time and they put a lot of action against figuring out themselves. So take us through what that looked like for you, Carli.
Yeah, sure. So the first step that I did is as part of the recipe, the desire. And the desire ingredients of the recipe includes strengths, purpose, values. And those were a lot of things that I worked with my career coach on as part of the framework of understanding who you are, what you want to do, how you could apply what's valuable to you and your strengths and your purpose to your career. And I encourage a lot of people to do this because sometimes it's not as simple as changing your job for a higher paying job, because is that really going to make you happy? Does that really align with your purpose and your values and some of your strengths? Maybe it does, but either way, for me, I knew that I needed to look a little bit deeper and be strategic about what the next move was going to be for me. So writing out some of my strengths, and what's really funny too, Kristen, is that I did the Clifton Strengths Finder, and you did as well. We didn't have any overlapping traits though.
Oh no.
No, we didn't have any overlapping
Okay.
traits. So my traits were more focused on relationship building and executing, which is perfect for me in my career because that's what I did at the advertising agency. It was the client liaison, relationship builder, and I executed all the marketing campaigns. And those are the things I love to do. So finding what your strengths are and utilizing that and working that into your personal and professional life, I think is huge. And the purpose. So like, what is your purpose? So I had to think of that, and I still really can't answer that. When I think of that, I think of like, what is my story? What do I want my story to be? I don't know yet, but I do know that I want to live a fulfilling life and be happy in my job and my personal life. I want to be there for my son. I want to be a good mother and work good at my job. But then the values too, it's what you're passionate about and what you like to do. And those, what I like to do, what I'm passionate about really fits in with my strengths in that I love meeting new people. I love relationship building. I love getting things done in fast-paced environments. So that really fit well. and putting together what my desire was going to be.
I love that you took the Clifton Strengths Finder. That was really like eye-opening to me. And I think maybe too, we talked earlier about how contrast creates clarity. And I think like in corporate roles, at least in my experience, but I also think like in many people's experiences, you get into a job doing what you thought you were going to be doing and you were excited about that. And then over time, you get more responsibility over here. Your boss gives you a little bit more of this. And then your role maybe becomes something outside of what you were originally pursuing. And so then maybe it doesn't align as well with your strengths as much, and then it creates that tension, right? So I think being able to understand your strengths is a huge part of finding something that's fulfilling to you. So it's really cool that you did that too, because that was really helpful for me as well.
Yeah. And I would even encourage people, if they haven't already, to communicate their strengths to their manager, because at least they know, okay, this is what my direct report is really good at. I want to make sure I utilize that person to their full potential or get them to the next level. A good leader, a good manager will do that for you. So by you knowing your strengths and letting your supervisor know, I think if you have that relationship with them, it doesn't hurt to say, like, here's what I'm really good at. Let me show you how good I can be, or help me get to where I am. Yeah.
I love that advice. Hey there. You just heard me talking about the Bold Moves recipe, and I quickly wanted to take you into my world, and then we're going to get right back into the episode. I was doing some research for my keynote talk on the Bold Moves recipe and found out that a whopping 75% of people feel stuck personally and professionally. That's 3 in every 4 people who listen to this podcast are feeling stuck. You can feel stuck for so many different reasons, like you're not yet where you want to be. You're not energized by your work or your life. You've been dreaming about changing directions or moving on, doing something different, but you're not sure how to get started or what to do next, and that leaves you feeling stuck. So you know what the antidote to feeling stuck is? It's momentum. And that's exactly what we're doing here, right here on the Bold Moves How Did You Know podcast. I'm talking to leaders who have created momentum in their lives by making bold moves. And because of all of these interviews I've been doing, I've been seeing these patterns of behaviors and these traits for making bold moves. And now I've created a framework to help you make bold moves. It's called the Bold Moves Recipe. And it helps you move beyond this complacency you've been feeling and this place of feeling stuck to get unstuck. I help you discover your authentic desires, define your next bold move if you don't already know what it is you want to be doing, but you just know you've got to get to that next place, and take action on your bold move to create a life on your terms. Because at the end of the day, creating a life on your terms is going to make you feel more satisfied and fulfilled. You can get the Bold Moves recipe delivered straight to your inbox when you sign up for the Bold Moves Podcast Club. Just open up the show notes for this episode, click the link for the Bold Moves recipe to sign up right now. Okay, let's get back to the episode. So part 2 of the recipe is who. So we've already talked a lot about Annetta. I'm sure she was a huge part of your who, but how did she specifically help? And then was there anyone else that was able to support you as you were learning about what to do next?
Yeah. So Annetta, the career coach, of course, and then podcasts. So listening to my peers, trying to understand where they were in their journey and find similarities so I can kind of get some of my creative juices flowing and ideas and inspiration. So I really liked finding different podcasts, also biographies. If there's somebody who you really admire, I love, and sometimes it's like, it doesn't have to be a business biography. Like I listened to Michelle Obama was a good one. Jessica Simpson. Sometimes I'm just like, I'm curious to know how all these people were able to get to where they are today. So anything, I like to listen to how other people started out and how they get there. Networking is always a great tool. I was part of what the Cleveland Leadership Center has up here in Cleveland. It's called Cleveland Bridge Builders. And there's a group of mid-level senior professionals that you're kind of in this class and you're teamed up with different managers from nonprofits, different sectors, and you're paired up and you have to come and figure out a challenge in the community. And you've never worked with these people before, but you become close and you understand their background and how you work together. So that was really cool too. And I made some lifelong friends in that process of how could we be great leaders and bounce ideas off of each other. And then another thing I would say too is a 360 review. And this is a bold move in your current career if you haven't already done this. Have you ever done a 360 on yourself?
Yeah, I don't think so. No, but I hear you on that being a bold move, because just when you said it, that made me feel very vulnerable.
Oh, it's so cringy when you do it, but I think I did it a few times and my supervisor was like, "Are you sure you want to do it?" And I'm like, "Do it. I just want to know what everyone thinks of me. I need to know what I need to work on and focus. So what are my peers saying?" Like I knew what my weaknesses were, but I think I needed to be vulnerable and listen to what other people thought I needed to improve on. And it really just validated everything that I thought anyway, but really helped me. And being uncomfortable, I mean, I felt bad for my manager because she was the one that had to read me all the information. And it wasn't that it was bad. I think the one thing that it wasn't negative, what was it? I'm very structured. And I needed to kind of loosen up a little bit in meetings with everybody. They're like, "Come on, Carli, just loosen up a little bit. You know, when the meeting starts, ask how everyone's weekend was and how everyone's doing." And usually I'm like, "No, we come to the meeting. I'm going to be efficient with your time. This is what we're going to do." So I just told I needed to be a little, like, loosen up a little bit.
So you had the career coach. You talked about this fantastic piece of advice that we hadn't yet heard on the podcast about 360-degree reviews for collecting more information about your skills and your weaknesses. It's a great idea. So then you said about Annetta, how you had a 6-month plan, but you shortened it down to 3 months because you were so ready. It's not just jumping off the cliff that is, I mean, maybe that's the biggest moment of the bold move, but it is now setting yourself into this journey of your next chapter. So what are some of the actions that you're taking day by day to make your goal to be a consultant a thriving career?
There were a lot of little micro steps that needed to happen along the way. And luckily I had the framework and kind of like a list really that Annetta said, "Here are all the things you got to do." And me being a structured person, I had to check everything off the list. But so it all came easy to me because I thought, all right, now it's time to execute. But the things that I needed to do was just make sure that my house was clean. And when I say that, I need to have my brand, and I need to have established who I am, what am I selling, what's my value proposition. So thinking of it as a personal branding exercise or a creative brief. And that's from the perspective of somebody like me who's worked in an advertising agency her entire career is, all right, how can I translate a branding exercise to Carli or to Buttoned Up? And, and so I asked myself the questions and I had to establish who is my target audience, who am I talking to? So that's a biggie. What are my services? How can I benefit them? But what's the value exchange? So how am I helping them and how are they helping me? And that's going to be huge for any selling point. But then as a brand strategist too, I have to decide what's my personality, my brand personality, what's my position, like what is my role in the market? Like, how do I stand out from all other marketing consultants? And even though there are a ton of us, everybody is different, and whatever your personality is will mesh with some and not mesh with others. So it was kind of understanding all of those little pieces before I went to market, meaning before I launched and said, all right, this is Buttoned Up and here's who I am and I'm sticking to it.
I'm sticking to it. I love that. Yeah. It's like putting it down on paper and being like, okay, these are the things that need to be checked off is really helpful, right? And like looking at your weeks and what are you going to accomplish in this week, day by day, checking things off that add up to a whole lot when you look back on the month, on the year, whatever, you're like, oh my gosh, I accomplished so much if you just get intentional about doing it, right?
Mhm.
How long did it take for you quit your job, and then how long between that and launching was that time frame?
So when I started working with Annetta in May, I was ready to launch in July. And she's like, whoa, 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 hold your horses. Like, we need to make sure that everything is good to go. And we said, all right, well, maybe we'll ask my agency if I could do a transition period. So that's what I did. I let my manager know in August. So
Right.
really 4 months. It was 4 months. It went super fast.
Yeah.
And I'm here if anybody needs help to understand how I did it, or if they need help with their branding. But it was easy for me just because of my background and what I do in marketing
Yep.
communication.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, because I wanted to circle back on this. I thought of this before and it's coming back to mind again. The other value of working with people on getting to your next spot is that they do bring new thoughts to how to implement, how to apply it, and what to do. And one of the things you said about, let's see if my agency would be open to my being part-time as I make the transition. I mean, if Annetta hadn't presented that idea, I wonder, would you have realized or thought about that as an opportunity for yourself? And how amazing is that other people can give you those insights if you're just vocal about what it is you want to do and ask for that help. You're not going to get it if you don't ask.
Exactly. Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because Annetta said, like, here are the scenarios. Let's do the worst case scenario and let's do the best case scenario. The worst case scenario was the agency can say, all right, bye, you're done, last day. And that'll be heartbreaking. And then I feel like, oh gosh, I don't have a job. But best case scenario was tell them about it, be open. And I was scared to death. I mean, I was losing sleep over it. And fortunately they were like, absolutely. So really, I think through the different scenarios and what path you can take. It ended up working out nicely.
At the turn of the year, so back a couple months ago, there was this like whole, I don't know, I think it was a social media thing that was going on where it was like, this is in and this is out. Okay. All right. This is in, this is out. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of do this with bold moves. And
God.
I'll give you a few examples, and then you can tell me what comes to mind for you, Carli.
Okay.
Does that sound okay?
Yes.
All right. So I'm calling this the in-out list for bold moves. Okay. And I put some thought into this for myself. So in for me, in terms of making my bold moves, is creating before you consume. So, meaning we get with the internet, with social media, with TV, whatever, we are sucked into other people's worlds so fast.
Yes.
From the moment we get up to the moment we go to bed, we're consuming other people's ideas.
Yeah.
But I recently heard somebody talk about how they create before they consume.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, for me, I'm in a similar type of business, right? I'm also creating a brand for myself. And it's really important for me to be able to have my own ideas and put my own thought leadership out into the world.
Yep.
And I need to be doing that when I have creative space and I haven't yet thought about other people and what they're saying, right? Mm-hmm. So that's an example of my in is creating before I consume. Mm-hmm. And then one more thing would be, let's see, out. Okay, I'll do an out. So out on the bold moves list is negative self-talk. Yes. Cannot go anywhere fast if we are talking negatively to ourselves. And one thing that just came up for me in terms of something I thought about during our conversation today, imposter syndrome, because often when you take a leap into a space that you aren't sure about or is more uncomfortable than maybe a position you've ever put yourself in, it's so easy to say, I'm not there yet, or just compare yourself to other people, and all of the negative loops that come into play in your head can really derail us from our bold move. So for me, negative self-talk is out, and the way that I handle not paying attention to those things that come into my head, I try to push them out, but I also have a whole, if you could see my computer right now, maybe I'll take a a picture and post it on social media, but I have a list of affirmations all across my computer and myself
Yes.
of all of the positive things that I'm working towards achieving. So that's what's in. Okay. I gave you some time to think. I know it's kind of a difficult one, but do you have an in out for your bold move this year?
Okay, so for my bold move this year, that what's in and what's out. I mean, like one thing that keeps coming to mind for me it's not being afraid to reach out to somebody who you haven't talked to in a while and see if you can meet for coffee, because you never know where that's going to go. So reaching out to people. And in for me personally too, when I do work and I need that creative workspace, I go to the library sometimes. I used to do this in college, and I get so much accomplished going to the library. I feel kind of cool. Like it's old school.
And I love the idea. I mean, maybe it's because both you and I are in marketing, but I love the idea of being surrounded by books and stories, and just it feels very inspirational in a library to me.
It is, and it's quiet. Really cool. Yeah. And the Strongsville location that I go to is they have a newer library and you have meeting rooms. So I reserve a meeting room, which is kind of cool too. Yes.
That is really cool. Oh, that's a hot tip. Okay. I love that.
I like that. That's in for me. And there's nobody else going, and then out, tailing off of what you were saying with the negativity. But I think of bashing other brands. And I've seen this on commercials and Facebook. I think that brands should not bash other brands, because that just makes you look terrible.
You've given us 3 good ones, 2 ins and 1 out. My final question is, what do you know about being bold today that you wish you would have known earlier on?
It would have been more open to new growth opportunities, exploring different types of podcasts and expanding my mind instead of just I was a lot of times trying to go to workshops that I would get to the next level of my career, when it's just like, why can't I take a class or workshop on anything and everything? It doesn't have to be industry specific. Just open my mind to other things that maybe I'm not as knowledgeable on. It could be like political science, or take a class that has nothing to do with advertising. What about you?
I wish I would have known to be more aware of myself earlier.
Yeah.
I wish that I didn't have such a people pleaser mentality. I really was driven by a version of success that I thought was expected, and it served me really, really well, and I don't regret it. But also knowing where I am today and understanding who I am better at my core feels more fulfilling and satisfying. And I just feel more grounded and happier. And I think that's because I took the time to do the work that was required to know that stuff. But it's easy for everything else to drown out doing that work, right? There's so much to pay attention to and to fill the void, right? I mean, it's everywhere. I was on a walk last week and I had this internal message come through to me, and I said, oh, this is what it's like to feel successful, and rather than like be successful, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
This version of success for me today has nothing to do with material things. It's so much more about this feeling I have inside.
Abundance. I could tell. I could feel it from you. I mean, I could sense that you're happy. You have great vibes.
Thank you. Well, I am so excited for your new journey. Congratulations.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, keep me updated on all the goings on that come of Buttoned Up. I will be watching your journey. We'd love to reconnect down the road too, and we can all check in and see how things are going.
Yes.
But thank you again, Carli, for being here. If people want to learn more about you, where can they go?
They can go to buttonedup.consulting. That's my website. And again, my name is Carli. You can email me at carli@buttonedup.consulting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. We will see you in the next one. Bye.